Are you curious how to do a seated forward fold? During this guided practice, we'll cover 5 different yoga poses that really help you with the foundations of your technique and alignment in the seated forward fold, so also known as Paschimottanasana. I'm Irene, a yoga and mindfulness teacher, sharing different yoga, mindfulness and breathing practices. And if you're excited about today's practice, do give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the Antara Yoga channel. So you can come first towards your hands and knees. And then step your right foot forward. If the left knee feels a little sensitive, you could place some sort of towel or blanket. You want to really allow your left toes to be facing back and your right toes to be facing forward. And then on the inhale, you can start to reach the arms up here. So we're creating space in the front of the left hip flexor and lengthening nice and tall up through the upper body. And then on the next exhale, you can start to slowly lower the hands down, so maybe coming right down towards your fingertips. This is tricky, you could have the hands on blocks or books, and then slowly shifting the weight of the hips back. And if it's comfortable, right toes can lift, right leg can start to lengthen. Otherwise, keeping that little bend through the right knee. And then we'll move back and forth, so drawing that right foot down, reaching the arms high on your inhale, and then exhale, hands drop down, shifting the weight of the hips back. Doing this a couple more times, so inhale, as you reach arms up, hips sink forward. Exhale, drawing the weight of the hips back. And then just doing this again, inhaling. And exhale. And one last time, inhaling. And exhale. And then coming all the way forward, dropping the hands right down and coming back to your hands and knees. Changing sides, so now the left foot is going to step forward. And you're coming up with the upper body on your inhale. Front of the right hip flexor is lengthening. And then reaching the arms up and over the head. Keeping that gaze, just looking softly forward. Right toe is nice and heavy. Exhaling as you lower the hands down. This time shifting left leg back. Again, leg can be a little bent, or you can lengthen that leg completely. And then inhaling, bringing that weight forward. Again, arms lift up. Exhaling to shift the weight back. And inhaling to come forward. We'll do this a couple more times. So fingertips can be pretty light. They're sort of just there for a little bit of extra support. Most of that movement is coming from the hips and from the legs. But you can be finding also that firmness in the belly to help control and support the upper body. So just do this a couple more times, back and forth. And then the next time you come forward, you can lower the hands down and come back to your hands and knees. So from here, we're going to come towards a standing forward fold. So feet can be about hip distance apart. Hands coming towards the hips and elbows start to draw back. Exhaling, starting to fold. So if you can keep legs long, spine long as you fold halfway. And then when you can't fold any forward with the legs nice and straight, you can slightly bend the knees, dropping the upper body down and releasing the legs out in front. So this is really the standing version of your seated forward fold. Biggest difference here is because our hips are in space rather than on the ground, we've got a little bit more movement to move the hips. So we can allow the knees to bend a little here, finding still that stretch in the back of the thighs. Really allowing gravity to work here. And you could play a little bit with leaning forward to the toes and leaning back again. And hands can be either just right in front of your feet if the knees are a little bent or arms long, or you could be holding the opposite elbows. Now we're not that warm yet, so do keep the bend in the knee generous. And you want to feel a gentle stretch on the hamstrings rather than an intense stretch. Staying here, one more breath. And then you can slowly start to bend the knees, come down to a seated position and reach the legs out in front. So we're going to come to a bit more of a hip opener, a wide Baddha Konasana, since our seated forward fold also requires some mobility in the hips. So soles of the feet can be together, knees apart, a little bit of a gap between the heels and the hips. Gaze can be looking forward, hands can be resting somewhere on the shins or on the feet. Spine can be relatively long, but feel free to slightly round the spine if you need. But thinking more about really lengthening the spine forward rather than rounding the spine. If you're feeling quite comfortable here, you could walk the hands a little forward. So we play here also with a little bit of a forward fold. If this feels pretty intense, you can stay right upright and maybe even just keeping the shoulders right above your hips. So either you're more upright or you're that little bit folded forward. Staying here, 3 more breaths. So seeing with every exhale if you can relax and release into the pose. And then with the inhale, maybe seeing if you can keep lengthening through the spine, giving yourself more space to possibly fold forward. So staying here, 1 more breath. And then slowly on the inhale, walking the hands back up if you were folded forward. Hands can come to the outside of the knees draw together. And then extending both legs out in front. So we're going to come to our Janu Sirsasana. So this is a nice sort of combination between opening one hip and folding a little bit more forward over one straight leg. So we've got a little bit more space than we do with the double leg forward fold. So you can start by bending your right leg, and then your right foot is going to come to the inside of that left leg. Right knee starts to open out to the right side. Now you want to imagine as if you're standing on that left foot, so left foot is nice and active, toes pointing up. And we'll use the inhale to start to reach up through the arms, so lengthening as you breathe in. And then on the exhale, hands can come down just in front of the hips, can be gazing a little forward to that left leg, and either staying pretty upright, or you can play a little bit with leaning a little bit more forward towards that left leg. You can gauge for yourself how that feels in the hamstring and other parts of the body. And gaze can be just looking down towards that left leg. We'll be staying here 2 more breaths. And then slowly using that inhale to come up. Exhale, right leg extends, and we'll come to the opposite side. So left leg can bend, left knee opens out to the left side, adjusting the hips slightly if you need. Right toes facing up. Inhaling as you start to reach up through the arms and lengthen. And exhaling, hands come down, maybe leaning a little forward to that right leg. So this side might feel different, so you can play a little bit again how it feels with leaning forward or staying more upright. And notice if the foot wants to spin a little out to the side or even a little into the side. See if you can keep that foot pretty much forward, and that will also help keep the rest of the leg aligned. Spine again stays relatively straight, but there can be this slight rounding of the spine. And belly wants to stay firm here. Staying here 1 more breath. And then slowly coming up on your next breath. Exhale, releasing and reaching out that left leg. So we're going to put together a bit everything we've done in all the other poses for our seated forward fold. So feet can start with being together. We'll try a few different options, but let's start with this one. And then you can reach the arms high on the inhale. So you really want to, again, imagine if you're standing on your feet, you're pressing the balls of the feet nice and wide away. Exhaling, hands come down in a little bit in front of the hips. Gaze can be looking forward. So you want to keep the belly firm, really kind of imagining as if you're lengthening up through the spine, and then playing a little bit either with leaning a little forward or staying a little bit more upright. If you feel tension in the lower back, you might come a little more upright, engage a little bit more the belly. If the hamstrings feel comfortable, lower back feels comfortable, you could play a little bit with leaning forward. Staying here 1 more breath. And then slowly coming up on your next breath. So we'll try a few different techniques and variations of this seated forward fold. So the next one can also feel quite nice for the lower back. Slightly different because we're going to bend the knees. So a bit like we did in the standing forward bend, feet about hip distance apart, heels can be on the ground, toes lifting up. And then you kind of lean a little forward so that your belly rests on the thighs. So it doesn't really matter how deep the knees need to be bent to allow that belly to rest on the thighs. You're holding here the outside of the feet. Feels really nice here for the lower back. And then you could play a little bit with just extending the legs, keeping the legs nice and wide, and dropping the head down. You still want to be trying to find that length of the spine as you breathe in. And then on the exhale, seeing if you can sink down and relax. Staying here 1 more breath. And then gradually coming up on your next inhale and exhale, relax and release. So we're going to come to our final kind of version of the seated forward bend. This one's kind of technically a different pose because we're going to be lying on the back, but it's really that same structure with the body. So I think it's a really nice one to finish with. So you can come to lie down on the back. Knees can be kind of bent, hugging into the chest. And then you can be reaching your feet a little up, but at the same time keeping the legs relatively close. So there will be a little bend of the knees here, unless you're extremely flexible in the hamstrings. And hands can be somewhere sort of between the knees and the ankles. Gaze just looking at your toes. This is a nice lying version of that seated forward bend. You can rock, if you like, a little side to side, or just stay stationary in the middle. Notice if the lower back and hips are lifting quite high, and see if you can kind of be thinking down with the hips whilst thinking forward with the legs. Again, if that means bending the knees, bend a little your knees here. Staying here, one more breath. And then slowly on the exhale, you can release the legs, just pausing a moment, hugging the knees into the chest. Nice counter pose. And then when you're ready, you can slowly roll over onto one side and find your way back to a seated position. So if you enjoyed this video, look out for the other technique videos I've got breaking down one yoga pose through the actions of 5 different yoga poses, which I've got on downward dog and on the bridge pose. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the Antara Yoga channel, and I'll see you in the next one.